The hotel stood like a forgotten relic at the edge of the town, beckoning weary travelers with promises of luxury. Its faded grandeur hinted at a time when it was the crown jewel of the area. When we first entered the suite, it was hard to believe we had scored such a place for next to nothing. The opulent furnishings felt like a mirage, but as the door clicked shut behind us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd just walked into a cage, and something was watching us from the shadows. The walls were lined with intricate peeling wallpaper, and the air was thick with an unsettling stillness. I glanced at my partner, whose excitement was palpable. "Isn't it beautiful?" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling. I forced a smile, but my stomach churned as I scanned the dim corners of the room where the light barely reached. A heavy silence wrapped around us, amplifying the creaks of the old building. As the evening wore on, we unpacked our bags, trying to shake off the unease that clung to me. While my partner explored the vintage decor, I couldn't help but notice the oddities scattered around the suite photos of past guests, their faces faded and expressionless. It was as if they were trapped in time, their joy frozen in a moment that felt eerily out of place. I shuddered, brushing the thought aside as we settled in for the night. When we headed down to the lobby for dinner, the hotel manager greeted us with a thin smile. His eyes darted around as if he was scanning for something or someone. "Enjoy your stay," he said, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. I felt a chill run down my spine as he leaned closer, adding, "Just be careful with that suite. It's special." His warning hung in the air, unsettling yet vague, leaving me to wonder what exactly he meant. We returned to our suite, laughter echoing in the hallways as we reminisced about our day. But as the door closed behind us, the atmosphere shifted. The air turned frigid, and shadows flickered at the edges of my vision. I brushed it off as exhaustion, but deep down I sensed something wasn't right. The suite, once inviting, now felt like a trap slowly tightening around us. My partner switched on the television, hoping to lighten the mood. The static-filled screen flickered to life, and the images began to swirl. I felt drawn to it. But as I stepped closer, the screen morphed into scenes of frantic movements, faint cries for help that sent chills down my spine. I blinked, and the images vanished, leaving us in oppressive silence once more. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to the unsettling noises. The walls whispered secrets, and the floorboards creaked as if they were alive. My heart raced as I recalled the manager's warning. I wanted to wake my partner, but I didn't want to frighten her. Instead, I stared into the darkness, straining to hear anything other than our shallow breaths. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the suite. I shot upright, adrenaline surging through me. My partner stirred beside me, her eyes wide with confusion. "What was that?" she whispered. I shook my head, feeling a wave of dread wash over me. The sound had come from the other room, a door slamming shut, or something much worse. As we ventured into the darkened living area, I felt an invisible weight pressing down on me. The air felt charged, and the shadows seemed to writhe and twist, almost alive. I took a hesitant step forward, heart pounding in my chest. I knew I should turn back, but curiosity pushed me to investigate the source of the noise. Together, we crept toward the bedroom door, which stood slightly ajar. Peering inside, I caught a glimpse of something that made my blood run cold. The room was empty, yet the bed was perfectly made, as if no one had ever slept there. The air felt charged, vibrating with an unspoken tension. I felt a shiver race down my spine, and I knew that we weren't alone in this suite. My partner's hand squeezed mine tightly, and I turned to reassure her. but she seemed transfixed by something behind me. I spun around, and my breath hitched in my throat. There, just beyond the threshold, a flickering figure stood translucent, almost human. It wore a forlorn expression, its eyes filled with despair. I wanted to scream, but the sound caught in my throat. The figure seemed to dissolve into the shadows, leaving behind an unsettling chill that seeped into my bones. We backed away slowly, my partner's face pale as she clutched my arm. "Did you see that?" she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. I nodded, heart racing, the dread swirling around us like a storm. We stumbled backward, desperate to escape the suite. But the door we had entered through felt impossibly distant, as if the room itself were expanding to keep us trapped. I glanced at the windows, hoping to find a way out. They were locked tight, as if someone had sealed them from the outside. The realization hit me. This suite was designed to keep us in. I felt the walls closing in and my mind raced. I couldn't shake the feeling that every guest who had entered here had left behind a part of themselves, a dark energy that sought to ensnare us. As night deepened, whispers began to fill the air, faint and sorrowful, echoing through the walls. It was as if the very building mourned for those who had vanished. I tried to make sense of it all, but the fear overwhelmed me. I turned to my partner, whose eyes were wide with terror. "We need to leave," I urged. But it felt like our escape was slipping further away with each passing moment. We raced to the main hallway, but the path twisted and turned, growing darker and more oppressive. The once grand corridors felt labyrinthine, each corner revealing only more shadows and whispers that grew louder, more desperate. I felt disoriented, as if the hotel was alive, shifting to keep us lost. The desperation clawed at my throat, and I wanted to scream. Suddenly, a door swung open down the hall, revealing a flickering light. I glanced at my partner, and we shared a fleeting look of hope. Perhaps someone else was still here, someone who could help us. We hurried toward the light, but as we neared, the door slammed shut, cutting off any chance of escape. The sudden silence felt deafening, crushing me under its weight. The whispers escalated, turning into frantic pleas that echoed off the walls. "Help us, please!" they cried. I stopped in my tracks, heart racing. The realization struck me like lightning. We were hearing the voices of past guests, trapped in this very suite. They were calling out for salvation, but their cries only served to amplify my own terror. In a panic, I turned back to the suite, hoping we could find a way to escape the malevolent grip of the hotel. But the door was locked tight, the knob refusing to turn. My heart sank. We were trapped, just like those before us. I felt the walls close in, the whispers growing louder, suffocating my thoughts. We had to find a way out before it was too late. Just then, a sharp knock echoed through the hallway, startling me. My heart raced as I glanced at my partner, who looked equally bewildered. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. I nodded, dread pooling in my stomach. It felt as though the hotel itself was testing us, taunting us with the possibility of escape that would never come. Gathering my courage, I stepped toward the source of the knock, each step feeling heavier than the last. The hotel felt alive around me, the air thick with tension. I approached the door that had swung open before, hoping it would lead us to safety. I pushed against it, but it refused to budge. Panic surged within me. We were losing time, and whatever was lurking here was closing in. My partner's grip tightened around my arm, and I turned to see her eyes wide with fear. "We can't stay here," she urged. her voice shaking. I nodded, desperate to find a way out. The walls felt like they were closing in, the whispers growing more frantic, urging us to leave. But every instinct told me it was too late. We stumbled back toward the suite, our last refuge in a building that had turned against us. But as we entered, the atmosphere shifted once more. The air was electric, charged with a dark energy that threatened to pull us under. Shadows twisted in the corners, and the once inviting room now felt like a prison. We were running out of time. Desperate, I searched for any means of escape. My eyes landed on the closet door, slightly ajar. Could there be a way out through there? I rushed over and yanked it open, but inside was only a void. Nothing but darkness stared back at me. I hesitated, the whispers growing louder, echoing my fear. I knew we had to take the risk, but dread clawed at my insides. With trembling hands, I stepped into the closet, pulling my partner behind me. The air felt thick, suffocating as I pushed deeper into the dark. We felt like we were being swallowed by the hotel, the walls pressing in on all sides. The whispers escalated to a crescendo, drowning out my thoughts. We were losing ourselves in the darkness, each second stretching into eternity. Just when I thought I could bear it no longer, I saw a faint glimmer of light ahead. Hope surged within me as we hurried toward it, pushing through the suffocating shadows. But as we drew closer, the light flickered and vanished, leaving us engulfed in darkness once more. Panic surged, and I grasped my partner's hand tightly, terrified that we might be lost forever. In that moment, I realized the truth. We were not just lost in the hotel. We were part of its twisted history. The guests before us had left their marks, and now we were just another pair of souls destined to wander its halls. The realization hit me like a physical blow, and I felt the weight of despair settle over us, thick and heavy. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from the hallway, shaking the walls. The ground trembled beneath us, and I felt an overwhelming urge to run. My partner and I bolted toward the door, flinging it open as we raced into the corridor. But the path was shifting, twisting like a serpent, leading us deeper into the darkness. As we ran, I felt a presence at my back, a weight pressing down, as if the hotel itself were trying to keep us there. My breaths came in short gasps as I glanced over my shoulder, only to see nothing but shadows. It was as if whatever haunted this place wanted us to feel its torment, its anguish, as it preyed on our fear. We turned a corner, hoping to find a way out, but the hallway extended infinitely, each turn leading to yet another stretch of darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that the hotel was a maze, a living entity designed to ensnare those who dared enter. I felt my hope waning, but I refused to give in. We finally stumbled upon a staircase leading down, and without thinking, we rushed toward it. The steps creaked beneath us, the air thickening as we descended deeper into the heart of the hotel. I felt a chill creep over me, an all-consuming dread that whispered in my ear, "You will never leave." At the bottom of the staircase, a heavy door stood ajar, and I pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with old, dusty furniture. A chill ran through me as I stepped inside, and I felt a presence linger in the air, watching us with unseen eyes. The room felt alive, pulsing with the energy of those who had come before us, their essence trapped within its walls. As we explored, I stumbled upon an old journal resting on a side table, its pages yellowed with age. I opened it, desperate for answers. and my heart sank as I read the accounts of past guests who had vanished without a trace. Each entry chronicled their descent into madness, the same whispers driving them to despair. The final entry sent chills down my spine. Once you enter the suite, you can never return. Panic surged within me, and I clutched the journal tightly, my mind racing. We had to find a way out. This was our only chance. I turned to my partner, her eyes wide with terror as she grasped my arm. "We can't stay here," she urged, her voice trembling. I nodded, the reality of our situation settling heavily on my shoulders. We fled the room, retracing our steps up the staircase, only to find the corridor had transformed into an even darker version of itself. Shadows danced along the walls, taunting us as we ran, the whispers crescendoing into a deafening roar. "Help us, save us!" they cried, pulling at my sanity. I pushed the fear down, focusing on finding a way out. As we raced back toward our suite, the door loomed before us like a dark portal. I grasped the handle, but it refused to budge. Panic gripped me as I pulled harder, desperation surging through my veins. "It won't open," I shouted, feeling the walls close in on us, the darkness creeping closer, hungry for our despair. Just then, a sudden silence enveloped us, and I felt a cold breath on my neck. I turned, heart pounding, to see the flickering figure from earlier standing at the end of the corridor, its face twisted in sorrow. I froze, fear rooting me to the spot. It raised a hand, pointing toward a door further down the hall, beckoning us closer. With no other option, I grabbed my partner's hand and we raced towards the door. The figure faded into the shadows as we approached, the whispers intensifying once more. I could feel the hotel's grip tightening, the walls shuddering as if in protest. But this was our only chance. We had to trust in the fleeting hope that the figure represented. We reached the door and pushed it open, revealing a blinding light that momentarily blinded us. The overwhelming sense of relief washed over me, but as we stepped inside, the light flickered and vanished, plunging us back into darkness. The walls around us felt alive, pulsating with a sinister energy that threatened to consume us. As we stood in the dark, I heard the whispers crescendo into a frenzied scream. "You cannot escape!" they howled, and I felt the despair of countless souls pressing down on us. I turned to my partner, desperation clawing at my throat. "We can't give up," I urged, my heart racing as I pulled her toward a flickering sliver of light in the distance. We ran, but no matter how far we went, the hotel's maze of corridors only stretched further into the dark, like a nightmare without end. My screams echoed off the walls as I watched the door to the suite slam shut one last time, trapping us inside forever, just like the guests who came before us.